My heart stopped when the storeroom door creaked open, exposing me. Bare, vulnerable, my clothes in a heap by the shelves. Mathew, my cousin, stood frozen in the doorway, his wide blue eyes locked on mine, a hammer slipping from his hand to clatter on the floor. In that split second, I knew my secret, the one I'd buried deeper than the nails in the oak shelves around us, was about to unravel. I'd always been the quiet one, the kid who blended into the small-town backdrop of Willow Creek, Pennsylvania. At 22, I was still figuring out how to exist in a place where everyone knew your name but not your truth. The hardware store, my uncle's pride and joy, was my summer job, a refuge of routine, stocking shelves, ringing up customers, avoiding questions about why I wasn't dating Sarah from church. But that summer of 2025, everything changed. It started with Ethan, the new guy in town, with his easy smile and calloused hands, who made my pulse race in ways I couldn't admit, not even to myself. The storeroom was our sanctuary, a cramped space smelling of sawdust and paint thinner, where Ethan and I stole moments between shifts. That day, I'd slipped in to change my shirt after spilling paint, never expecting Mathew to barge in. His face, usually all grins and boyish charm, twisted into something unreadable. Shock, maybe anger. "Jake, what the hell?" he stammered, his voice low but sharp, like a blade slicing through the humid air. I scrambled for my shirt, my cheeks burning. "It's not what you think," I lied, my voice cracking. Ethan wasn't there. He'd left for his break. But the truth hung heavy. I wasn't just changing. I'd been reckless, caught up in the thrill of Ethan's touch, the way his fingers lingered on my skin when no one was looking. Mathew's gaze darted to the corner, where Ethan's jacket lay, a silent accusation. "Don't lie to me," Mathew said, stepping closer. His broad shoulders filled the doorway, blocking the light. "I saw you two yesterday, behind the lumber stacks." I didn't want to believe it. His words hit like a punch. He'd seen us. Our stolen kiss, the way Ethan's hand rested on my waist. My stomach churned. Mathew was my cousin, my best friend growing up, the guy who'd taught me to throw a curveball. But he was also Willow Creek through and through. Church on Sundays, football on Fridays, and a worldview that didn't leave room for someone like me. "Mathew, please," I whispered, clutching my shirt to my chest. "Don't tell anyone." My voice trembled, not just from fear but from the weight of years spent hiding. In Willow Creek, being gay wasn't just a secret, it was a scandal. I'd seen what happened to Tommy Harper, the only out kid in high school, who'd left town after his family's store got vandalized. I couldn't lose everything, my family, my home, my place in this world. Mathew's jaw tightened. "You're my cousin, Jake. I don't get this, but I'm not gonna rat you out." He paused, his eyes softening for a moment. "But you need to be careful. This town, it's not kind to people like you." He turned to leave, then stopped. "And Ethan? He's trouble. You don't even know him." He was wrong about Ethan, but I couldn't argue. Not then. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone with my pounding heart and the echo of his words. Ethan wasn't trouble. He was the first person who made me feel alive. We'd met 6 weeks ago, when he strolled into the store looking for work. His blonde hair caught the sunlight, and his laugh was like a melody I couldn't forget. He was 23, a drifter passing through, with stories of cities I'd only seen in movies. He didn't belong in Willow Creek, and maybe that's why I fell so hard. That night, I met Ethan behind the store, where the fireflies danced under the oak trees. "Mathew knows," I told him, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's face didn't change, but his hand found mine, steady and warm. "Then we'll be careful," he said, his green eyes fierce. "I'm not letting this town take you from me." His words were a promise, but they couldn't erase the fear gnawing at me. Willow Creek wasn't just a place, it was a cage, and I was starting to feel its bars. Over the next week, I walked on eggshells. Mathew didn't say another word about it, but his silence was worse than a lecture. He'd watch me from across the store, his expression a mix of pity and confusion. I wanted to tell him everything. How Ethan made me laugh, how his touch felt like freedom, but I couldn't, not yet. Instead, I threw myself into work, avoiding Ethan's gaze when customers were around. But every night, we'd find each other in the storeroom, stealing moments that felt like defiance. One evening, as we restocked screws, Ethan leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. "Run away with me," he whispered. My heart skipped. "I'm serious, Jake. We could leave this place, start over somewhere no one cares who we love." His words were a dream, but they terrified me. Leave Willow Creek? My family? The store? I wanted to say yes, but the weight of my life here held me back. Before I could answer, the door swung open. Mathew again. This time, his face wasn't shock. It was betrayal. "You're still doing this?" he hissed, glancing at Ethan. "You think you can just sneak around and no one'll notice?" My mouth went dry. Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "This isn't your business, Mathew." But Mathew wasn't listening. He grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the door. "We're talking. Now." Outside, under the flickering streetlight, Mathew let go. "Jake, you're throwing your life away for some guy who's gonna leave you high and dry," he said, his voice breaking. "You don't know what this'll do to you, to us, to your parents." His words stung because they were true. I didn't know what came next, but I knew I couldn't keep hiding. Not anymore. "I love him," I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. Mathew froze, his face pale. For the first time, I saw something break in him. Not anger, but fear. Fear for me. Fear of what this town would do. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about me and Ethan. It was about every choice I'd ever made to stay silent. Every lie I'd told to fit in. I wasn't just caught naked in the storeroom. I was exposed, raw, and ready to fight for the truth. The air between Mathew and me crackled with tension, the streetlight casting long shadows that seemed to swallow us whole. "You don't mean that," he said, his voice low, almost pleading. But I did mean it, and saying it out loud felt like shedding a skin I'd worn too long. I turned back to the store, where Ethan waited, his silhouette framed in the doorway. His presence was a lifeline, but Mathew's words echoed in my mind. "He's gonna leave you high and dry." I wanted to believe in Ethan, in us, but doubt crept in like damp rot in the store's old beams. Willow Creek had a way of breaking dreams, and I wasn't sure mine could survive. The next morning, the store buzzed with its usual rhythm. Customers haggling over lumber, the hum of the fan cutting through the July heat. But I felt like a stranger in my own life. Mathew avoided me, sticking to the front counter while I hid in the back, sorting nails with shaking hands. Ethan caught my eye across the aisle, his smile soft but cautious. "You okay?" he mouthed. I nodded, but I wasn't. The secret was out, and even if Mathew kept his promise not to tell, I could feel the walls closing in. That afternoon, my dad called me into his office. A cramped room behind the paint section, cluttered with invoices and coffee mugs. He was a big man, with hands rough from years of hauling lumber, but his eyes were kind. "You seem off, Jake," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Something going on?" My throat tightened. I wanted to tell him everything, about Ethan, about Mathew, about the fear that kept me up at night. But I couldn't. Not yet. "Just tired," I mumbled, hating the lie. Ethan and I met again that night, this time in the alley behind the diner, where the smell of fried onions mingled with the summer air. "Mathew's wrong about me," Ethan said, his voice fierce. "I'm not going anywhere unless it's with you." He pulled me close, his lips brushing mine, and for a moment, the world was just us. Two hearts beating against the weight of a town that didn't understand. But the moment shattered when I heard footsteps. I pulled away, my pulse racing, but it was just a stray cat darting through the shadows. "We can't keep doing this," I said, my voice trembling. "Hiding, sneaking around. It's killing me. Ethan's face fell, but he nodded. Then let's stop hiding, he said. Tell your family. Tell the world. I'll be right there with you. His words were brave, but they terrified me. Coming out in Willow Creek wasn't just a statement. It was a declaration of war. I'd seen the graffiti on Tommy Harper's locker, the whispers that followed him until he left. I wasn't sure I was strong enough. The next day, Mathew cornered me in the storeroom again. You need to end this with Ethan, he said, his voice low but urgent. I heard some guys at church talking. They're suspicious, Jake. If they find out, it's not just you. It's your dad's business, your mom's reputation. His words hit like a sledgehammer. My family wasn't perfect, but they were mine. The thought of them suffering because of me made my chest ache. I can't just stop loving him, I said, my voice breaking. Mathew's eyes softened, but his jaw stayed tight. Then you better figure out how to keep it quiet, he said. Because if this gets out, it's over for you. He left me there, surrounded by shelves that felt more like bars than ever. That night, Ethan and I made a plan. We'd save up, leave Willow Creek by the end of summer. Seattle, maybe, or Portland, somewhere we could be ourselves. The idea felt like a lifeline, but it came with a cost. Leaving meant abandoning my family, the store, the only home I'd ever known. I lay awake that night, torn between love and loyalty, my heart a battlefield. The next week was a blur of tension. Mathew kept his distance, but I could feel his eyes on me, watching, waiting for me to slip up. Customers started noticing things. How Ethan and I lingered too long near each other. How my smile faltered when someone mentioned finding a nice girl. Rumors spread like wildfire in Willow Creek, and I could sense them smoldering. One evening, as we closed the store, Ethan pulled me into the storeroom. I got us bus tickets, he whispered, his eyes bright with hope. 2 weeks from now, Seattle. My heart soared, then crashed. 2 weeks. Could I really leave everything behind? Before I could answer, the door opened, and my dad stood there, his face unreadable. Jake, we need to talk, he said, his voice heavy with something I couldn't place. My stomach dropped. Had Mathew told him, or had the rumors reached him first? I froze, my mind racing for a lie, but none came. The truth was too big, too raw, and it spilled out before I could stop it. I love him, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Dad's face didn't change, but his hands clenched into fists, the knuckles white. Jake, he said, his voice low. Do you know what you're saying? I nodded, my throat tight. I'd never felt so exposed, not even when Mathew caught me half naked. He didn't yell, didn't curse. He just stood there, staring at the shelves as if they held answers I couldn't see. This town, he said finally, it's not built for that. You know what happened to Tommy Harper. His words weren't cruel, but they cut deep. He wasn't wrong. Willow Creek chewed up anyone who didn't fit its mold, and I was about to break it wide open. I don't want to hurt you or Mom, I said, tears stinging my eyes. But I can't keep pretending. Dad's shoulders sagged, and for the first time, I saw him as more than my father. He was a man carrying the weight of a town's expectations. I need time, he said, and left without another word. Ethan was waiting outside, his face pale. What happened? He asked, his hand reaching for mine. I pulled away, not because I didn't want him, but because I was drowning in fear. He knows, I said. I don't know what he'll do. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't push. We'll figure it out, he said, his voice steady. But I wasn't so sure. The next day, the store felt like a minefield. Every customer's glance felt like a judgment. Every whisper a threat. Mathew avoided me, but I caught him talking to a group of guys from church in the parking lot. Their heads bent close. My stomach churned. Was he keeping my secret, or was he breaking it? I couldn't tell anymore. Ethan and I kept our distance at work, but it didn't stop the rumors. By the end of the week, I overheard Mrs. Larson, the town gossip, muttering to a customer about that new boy and Jake acting strange. My heart pounded. If she knew, it wouldn't be long before everyone did. I wanted to run, to grab Ethan and board that bus to Seattle, but something held me back. This was my home, my family. Could I really leave them to face the fallout alone? That night, Ethan found me in the storeroom, his eyes fierce. "We can't wait," he said. "The longer we stay, the worse it gets. Let's go now." His urgency was a fire, but it scared me. "I can't just leave," I said. "Not yet." His face fell, and for the first time I saw doubt in his eyes. "Do you even want this?" he asked, his voice breaking. The question hit like a slap. I wanted him more than anything, but I was torn. Love on one side, family on the other. Before I could answer, the door burst open. This time it wasn't Mathew or my dad. It was Tommy Harper's older brother, Caleb, a burly guy with a reputation for trouble. "Heard you're following in my brother's footsteps," he sneered. His eyes locked on me. Ethan stepped forward, but Caleb shoved him against the shelves, cans clattering to the floor. "Stay out of this, drifter," he spat. My heart raced. This was it, the moment I'd feared. The town was coming for me. "Leave him alone," I said, my voice shaking but firm. Caleb laughed, a cruel sound. "You think you can just parade this around? You're gonna regret it, Jake." He stormed out, leaving a threat hanging in the air. Ethan grabbed my hand, his grip tight. "We need to go," he said. "Tonight." But I couldn't move. My feet were rooted to the floor, tethered to a life I wasn't ready to abandon. The next morning, I found a note slipped under the store's back door. Scrawled in Sharpie, it read, "Fags don't belong here." My blood ran cold. Ethan was right, we couldn't stay. But running felt like giving up, like letting Willow Creek win. I showed the note to Mathew, hoping for an ally. His face darkened, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. "You need to be careful," he said, echoing his warning from before. But this time, I saw something new in his eyes. Guilt. The note was just the beginning. Over the next few days, the whispers grew louder, the stares sharper. Someone spray-painted "Sinner" on the store's back wall, the red letters dripping like blood. My dad saw it first and scrubbed it off before opening, but I caught the pain in his eyes. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was tearing my family apart. I confronted Mathew that afternoon in the break room. "Did you tell anyone?" I demanded, my voice shaking. He looked away, his hands fidgeting with a coffee cup. "I didn't mean to," he said finally. "I was talking to Caleb at church, trying to figure out how to help you. It slipped." My heart sank. He hadn't meant to betray me, but he had. The secret I'd guarded so fiercely was now a spark in a dry field, spreading faster than I could run. "I'm sorry, Jake," Mathew said, his voice cracking. I don't know how to deal with this." For the first time, I saw him not as my cousin, but as a kid caught in the same cage I was. Willow Creek had shaped him too, taught him to fear what he didn't understand. But his apology didn't erase the damage. Caleb's threat, the graffiti, the note, it was all because of him. That night, I told Ethan everything. We sat on the hood of his beat-up truck, parked by the creek that gave the town its name. The water murmured softly, a contrast to the storm in my chest. "We leave tomorrow," Ethan said, his voice firm. "I've got enough saved for the tickets. We'll start over, Jake. Together." His hand found mine, and I wanted to believe in his vision. A life where we didn't have to hide. But the weight of my family, my home, pressed down on me. "What about my parents?" I asked. "They'll hate me. They'll come around," Ethan said, but his voice lacked conviction. We both knew Willow Creek didn't forgive easily. Still, his arms around me felt like the only safe place left. We kissed under the stars, the world fading away until it was just us. For a moment, I could almost see our future. A little apartment in Seattle, laughter over coffee. A life where love wasn't a crime. But the next morning, reality crashed back. My mom was waiting in the kitchen, her eyes red from crying. "Is it true?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "About you and that boy?" My heart stopped. Dad must have told her. I nodded, unable to lie anymore. She didn't yell, didn't turn away. She just pulled me into a hug, her tears soaking my shirt. "I don't understand," she whispered. "But you're my son." Her words were a lifeline, but they came with a warning. "This town won't make it easy, Jake. You need to be sure." I wasn't sure, not about leaving, not about staying. But I knew I couldn't keep living a lie. That afternoon, I found Ethan in the storeroom, his face lit with determination. "Tonight," he said. "We go tonight." I nodded, my throat tight. It was now or never. But as we packed our bags in secret, Caleb and his friends showed up at the store. They didn't come inside. They just stood in the parking lot, their truck engines idling, their eyes locked on me through the window. My dad saw them too. "Stay inside," he said, his voice low. He went out to confront them, his shoulders squared like he was ready for a fight. I'd never seen him so protective, and it broke something in me. He was fighting for me even if he didn't understand me. Mathew joined him, his face pale but resolute. "This is my fault," he whispered to me before stepping outside. I watched from the window as he faced Caleb, his voice too low to hear. The tension was a live wire, sparking with every word. Then Caleb laughed, a cruel sound, and drove off with his friends. Dad and Mathew came back inside, their faces grim. "They're not done," Dad said. "You need to go, Jake. Now." His words were a punch to the gut. My own father was telling me to leave, not out of anger, but to protect me. Tears stung my eyes as I grabbed my bag. Ethan was waiting by the back door, his hand outstretched. "We'll be okay," he said, but I could see the fear in his eyes too. We slipped out into the night, the bus station a mile away, our only chance at freedom. The night was heavy with the scent of rain as Ethan and I ran toward the bus station, our footsteps echoing on the empty streets. My heart pounded, not just from the run but from the weight of what I was leaving behind. My family, my home, the only life I'd ever known. But with Ethan's hand in mine, I felt a spark of hope, a belief that we could build something new. We reached the station just as the bus to Seattle pulled in, its headlights cutting through the drizzle. I glanced back at Willow Creek, the town's lights blurring in the rain. This was it, the moment I chose love over fear. But before we could board, headlights flashed behind us. My stomach dropped. Caleb's truck screeched to a stop, and he jumped out, his face twisted with rage. "You think you can just leave?" he shouted, his friends piling out behind him. Ethan pushed me behind him, his voice steady. "Back off, Caleb. This doesn't concern you." But Caleb wasn't listening. He lunged, his fist swinging toward Ethan. I shouted, shoving Ethan out of the way, and the blow grazed my shoulder instead. Pain flared, but adrenaline took over. I tackled Caleb, my fear turning to fury. We hit the ground, grappling in the mud, until Ethan and one of Caleb's friends pulled us apart. "Enough!" a voice roared. It was Mathew, his truck parked haphazardly on the curb. He stormed toward us, his face a mix of anger and desperation. "Caleb, get the hell out of here," he said, his voice shaking. "This is my family." Caleb sneered but backed off, his friends following. They drove away, their taunts echoing in the night. Mathew turned to me, his eyes wet with tears or rain. I couldn't tell. "I'm sorry, Jake," he said. "I was wrong. I didn't understand, but I do now. You don't have to run." His words hit me harder than Caleb's fist. My cousin, the one who'd betrayed me, was standing here, fighting for me. I didn't know what to say, so I just hugged him, my tears mixing with the rain. The bus driver honked, impatient. Ethan squeezed my hand. "We have to go," he said softly, but Mathew's words echoed in my mind. I looked at Ethan, then at the town I'd called home. Leaving was the easy choice, the safe one. But staying, Fighting for my place here, for my family's acceptance, that was harder. And maybe, just maybe, it was worth it. I'm staying, I said, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. Ethan's face fell, but he nodded, his eyes full of understanding. I'll wait for you, he said. Seattle's not going anywhere. We kissed, a promise sealed in the rain, and he boarded the bus alone. As it pulled away, I felt a piece of my heart go with him, but I also felt something new, resolve. The next morning, I walked into the store, my head high. The rumors were still there, the stares, the whispers. But my dad was waiting, his arm around my mom. We're not losing you, he said, his voice thick. Not to this town, not to anyone. Mathew stood behind them, a small smile breaking through his usual stoic mask. For the first time, I saw a future where I didn't have to hide. Over the next months, I fought for my place in Willow Creek. It wasn't easy. Some customers stopped coming, and the graffiti appeared again. But others stood by us, their support a quiet rebellion against the town's old ways. I wrote to Ethan every week, planning for the day we'd be together again. And when he finally came back, 6 months later, we stood together in the storeroom where it all began, no longer hiding. I was trembling that day when Mathew caught me, exposed and afraid. But what happened next, the fight, the love, the choice to stay, taught me that courage isn't running away. It's standing your ground, naked and unafraid, in the face of a world that doesn't always understand. And in that small-town storeroom, I found not just love, but the strength to be myself.